Content warning for this episode. Mentions of suicide.
I have brought in special guest Che Guevara to talk to us about capitalism. Hi, welcome back to Radiohead 2. I mean, the Overheard a UniSFA podcast. I'm John here with Cam.
That's me. You forgot my name, John. That's really funny.
I was wondering to introduce both of you with a title if I just say your name, but I fucked it. Jack is also here.
Hello.
Friend of the show. Now on the show.
It's me.
For this week's episode, I thought I'd bring in the two people I know who hate Dungeons and Dragons the most. That's the theme of today's episode.
Don't do this to me,
That
man.
is what I'm known for on Discord.
That's what I'm known for on Discord.
That, and I know you from that and Lord of the Rings.
Oh boy. Has anyone else been following the new Amazon TV show? Because I have.
All I know about it is feet.
The feet bit is significantly overstated, I gotta say.
That was... Isn't
it's
it that have been
about
like 7 and 2 episodes?
It's it's not as egregious as it's hobbits. They don't wear shoes.
Hobbits be having feet.
At least one of them is because a dude has like fucked his ankle up real bad, and that's like you gotta zoom in on that to show it, because that's the whole point of the scene, is that he can't walk anymore.
Oh no, my ankle is so fucked up.
Also,
look at my feet.
Call out to Amelia on the Discord, complains about all the feet in Lord of the Rings, and then is like, I shouldn't have been gardening barefoot today.
I was also trying not to bring up Amelia's foot counter that she has.
You brought up the foot counter. I probably shouldn't have brought up Amelia by name, but it's too late
that.
now.
Amelia, friend of the show.
Amelia, if you're listening to this in the background like usual, I'm so sorry.
Massive friend of the show for
it's gonna be
helping.
Jarring to hear your name 4 or 5 times.
Massive friend of the show for helping me do all the YouTube things. This show wouldn't be on
huge
YouTube
shout
without
out.
her. I've had this good bit in my mind of D&D. So I want you to how well do you think you are on selling RPGs to people?
I have been
You go, sorry.
No, that's fine. I've been running RPGs for a long time. I have been known to invite Unigames community members to my RPGs to get them to buy the game for the club room.
So I want to set the scene. You are running, your local, like an RPG group at your local game store, or just like a local RPG group, or an RPG club or something. And
Can't think of an example. Hold on.
Some sort of hypothetical.
Some hypothetical. And all of a sudden you see me walk in. I pretend I'm like a 15-year-old teenager, so not that far removed to what I am. And I'm like, looking around. You're like, hey buddy, you need some help. And I'm just like, hi, my name's Frankfurter. I want to play. I want to play an RPG. I really like Critical Role. I've watched loads of Critical Role. I really hope someone can be my Matt Mercer. I want to play D&D and only D&D. I've got a halfling. Get mistaken of his headset as
Cam's walking out of the room.
I've got a halfling ranger. He's got a pig pet. He's called Gerald. I can't wait to have adventures in D&D and nothing else. What do you say?
That sounds great, man. That does. Man, fuck you. You're really gonna do me like this? All right. No.
Cut to me like beating this poor street urchin. It sounds like
it's just John doing a voice.
No, it's me, Frankfurter.
Okay, it is Frankfurter. Okay.
It's me, Frankfurter, the 15-year-old.
So
I can't wait to play
I'm so
D&D.
sorry.
If you beat me up, that'll be my tragic backstory.
Frankfurter seems like he's an enthusiastic young member of the fucking RPG community, right? That's great. I love that. I'm not going to open normally with like D&D is bad and you should go fucking play something else. That's like day 2, right?
Yeah. I really want to experience the character stories like I see in Critical Role.
Like temper your expectations is something that I might mention in like a long conversation. The thing is that that conversation that I would then have with that kid, I've done that in Unigames before, right? That does take as long as this podcast episode will take. Because it is like, you gotta talk to a guy. You gotta be...
Oh boy, if only we didn't have the exact length of a podcast to talk about this.
I don't think we should talk about this for the whole podcast, man. Certainly not if I'm gonna be introing, like, a new person. Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go play
I love the bit, though. I love Frank
play
Fodder. He
Dungeons
seems
and
great.
Dragons.
I will say the
1
easy
week
angle.
later. I don't think RPGs are for me, actually. I'm gonna go back to playing World of Warcraft.
Deeply unsurprising.
I mean, what do the kids play these days? Final Fantasy 14? I mean,
nailed it. No, you
like
got it.
literally
That's
any
the
other
one.
game that isn't an MMO because no one
Look,
plays
I'm a-
MMOs anymore.
Boy, what a fun, apt analogy that is, yeah.
I literally just got back into Guild Wars 2.
Matt, can we? This
Man,
is
I love
can this be the Guild Wars
RPGs.
2 episode? I fucking love Guild Wars 2.
Oh,
That was
really?
the first MMO.
What? I didn't expect this.
That was the first ever MMO I like really got. Actually, no, that was the third MMO. No,
It was an MMO you got into and enjoyed.
it was. I think the first ever MMO I really got into was Adventure Quest Worlds.
Fucking
yes.
nice. I got into the original Battle on site. You know, Adventure
Yeah,
Quest,
Adventure
no
Quest.
special shit going on. It was all 2D, no movement.
Get you that blade
Love
of
that.
ore.
I mean,
did, yeah.
the Adventure Quest Worlds was 2D. I played the original
But like, it was
Adventure
like you
Quest
could move
and stuff.
around on it. You know, you had like walking animations.
Yeah, like in Adventure Quest Worlds.
No, but yeah, but Adventure Quest.
Worlds.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original Adventure Quest.
Yeah, that's what I played.
Nice.
I'm an OG gamer.
I played probably some Adventure Quest, but I was more playing like Dragon Fable and
yeah,
that
the
was like
Dragon
the
Fable I heard about, but I never
Drag-
really got into it.
yeah, and then Adventure Quest Worlds. That was where it was at. God, what a sick game. Actually, the game was probably not great, but
No, it was fine. I don't know. I played Guild Wars 2 and I played it wrong, as Jack knows full well.
How did
No,
you
you
play
played
Guild
it
Wars
right.
2 wrong? What?
You
So
played
I
it
played.
right.
I made Jump Slam Dunk, the tallest possible Nord with a big orange, perfectly spherical afro.
Yeah, correct.
He was just a basketball man, and I got full world exploration, and then never played again.
That's literally how you play Guild Wars 2. I remember playing it just exploring and like
Yeah.
doing
Guild Wars,
the world.
yeah, Guild Wars 2 is like the only MMO that's like designed around you being able to level the entire like gamut of levels by just doing world
The
exploration.
problem was that I did all of that, and then was like, this class really isn't for me.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I think I lucked out because the class I picked at the start of Guild Wars 2 is my favorite class.
Yeah, no, rest
it's
in peace, Jump
Elementalist. Which is funny because I just played like, just did world exploration Elementalist. Eventually I looked up like some people playing it. I was like, oh yeah, they're doing like this kind of thing. The thing is, Elementalist is the most complex, most button pressy class in the game because usually in the game your abilities are tied to what weapon. You have 5 abilities which are tied to what weapon you have, and then 5 which are like tied to your whatever skills you've chosen. And you can like swap your weapons, so you kind of have 10 skills.
with some swaps.
With Elementalists, you don't have weapon swaps. You have swaps between different
elements.
and there are 4 elements. But you can't swap your weapons. So
Nightmare.
instead of having 5 weapon things, you have 20 skills.
Did you play the game when the Weaver?
Yes, I made Weaver is my main class.
So instead of having your sets of 5 skills, having 4 sets of 5 skills, the Weaver now has to pick 2 different elements and mash them together, and so then you have even more horrible combinations.
Yeah, so instead of having 1 at a time, you have 2 at a time, and then based on the 2, you have your 3rd skill changes. Anyway, I just played that. I found it really fun to just do that. And then I go online and everyone's like, this is the most hardest complex class. If you play Warrior, you just need to click like 2 buttons. And I'm like, that sounds boring as shit. This isn't even that hard.
The Warrior does have a gun blade now.
Oh yeah, there's
Is
a
it
new
one-handed or
expansion.
two-handed?
It's like a special kit, like the Engineer. So you press, it's like your specialization thing at the top. You press like F1 and you pull out the gun blade.
Okay.
And it replaces your whole weapon.
One day I'll get gun and shield build.
Yeah. Guild Wars 2, actually I want to sell Guild Wars 2 to the audience now. If you want an MMORPG, which you can basically play the entire core game free, so you can get to the max level, you can do the entire core campaign free. The expansions are really good. There's only 3 of them. They go on sale a lot. It has the best mounts in any game ever if you get the expansion. It is super casual. There is no gear grind. Once you get the best gear in the game, you cannot get better gear. And the grindiest gear is literally the same stats as last gear, with the 2 benefits of you can change. Looks really cool, and you can change the specific stats it has. The stats are the same. It's just that means instead of building like 2 weapons, right, for different stat sets, you can just build 1 and then switch.
Nice.
Also, honorable mention: World versus World. I don't know if you ever jumped. Into
I
that
never
much.
played World versus World.
If you
or
want
PvP.
if you want to jump onto a PvP mode where you and 30 other people are besieging a castle for upwards of 5 hours that is being actively defended by another group of 30 people on a different server,
That does sound dope, yeah.
it is really cool. Like, build the trebuchets, man the trebuchets. Can you build the ladders over the walls? Can you knock them down with the battering rams? It is unlike any other sort of player versus player content I've ever played. But yeah, it's super cool.
The story's also very good. It is. They're bringing back season 1 now.
Yes.
It had like a seasonal thing, which the very first season was you had to be there, which also sucked because it meant that
You had to be there.
you had to be there. So everyone finishes the core game, and then you just have to skip a bunch of the story. But they're bringing that back now. You can play the rest of the story. It's good. The races are fun. I love the script. That's not a race you can play, but I love them.
They're just rat boys.
They're rat boys, but they get smarter
and
the more
who
they are
could
together.
forget Dear Rat Boy?
I want to talk more about D&D. I really just
No,
want.
no,
I
that's
just want to
alright.
tell.
Do you want me to go into it?
Okay, what's the? I've just heard audience context. I just heard these guys complain about some of the stuff that D&D has done recently, and I very
man.
much agree with it. So I just want to I don't know, spread propaganda. I think if you love D&D, that's fine. There's no problem with that.
Look, okay, if you love D&D now, it's fine. If you still love D&D in, 2 days of thinking about what I say, come on, bud.
Okay.
Come on, bud.
This is going to be
So where do we
yeah.
start with the story of why we hate D&D now? Do we start with the L5R?
I think we start with other games, right?
Like L5.
Oh, no, you know what? I think the best place to start is... No, I guess if you actually
L5R's
believe
issue right now is pretty symptomatic. I think the issue is just the
I'll
company
start with
policy in
you're reading
general.
my thesis here.
Okay.
D&D is actively harmful to other RPGs that exist and are good.
Oh no! Oh, I didn't want to hear that. Oh
I will quietly.
I will eat you.
I was about to say I was going to slide him surreptitiously a copy of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition, where you can absolutely play a friendly
have
little
a-
halfling with a pig.
God, you sure
no!
can.
And Gerald?
Yes.
Oh my god, Gerald, we're going to big places. I can't wait to
Going
go
to big
through
places
this,
like town.
Like Altdorf.
this lovely Warhammer place. I'm sure it's nice. I'm sure everyone's nice. It's a great world. There's no problems with it.
God, you know what I love in worlds that I'm going to have an RPG in? Problems. You got to have them. You can't not have problems.
You telling me that conflict is somewhat essential to a story of any kind?
Yeah.
We really,
Sorry,
we're
we-
really
we- okay.
rewriting how stories are written here.
Yeah, I'm getting derailed a bit. Basically,
I
D&D's business model is currently designed to choke the life out of all other role-playing games in the industry. They are actively preventing them. So one, they do everything they can to make sure that all the traffic about RPGs goes to them, and that it becomes harder to interact with other games. So they've recently copyrighted and started putting on their covers "World's Greatest Role-Playing Game."
TM.
Trademark, yeah. Now that's even if you believe that, right? And
which I very much do.
yeah, that's understandable. Which games have you played, Frankfurt?
I've watched a lot of Critical Role.
Okay, we're strawmanning really hard. With Frankfurt
hey,
here.
Frankfurt. Have
The
you
problem is
watched
I have
that
met
really
Frankfurt.
cool episode of Critical Role where they played Call of Cthulhu that one time?
No.
Well, have I got a Critical Role episode for
Please
you?
don't set me on fire. I burn really easily. I'm made of straw.
Frankfurter is a beautiful little straw boy that we've made. But he is real, is the thing. It's
Much like Pinocchio, this little straw boy has come to life.
yeah. I love Frankfurter. He actually the thing is, Frankfurter sounds like a really good kid that I would love to have be part of the clubs here. And
My mum let me come here because I got a C+ in mathematics.
it is a little fucked up that he's 15. But he'll if he's earned his way
Why?
here, that's we're at university. That's impressive.
No,
It's a little
this was a
concerning.
theoretical scenario where it could be a local game store or a regular RPG
Oh, okay, no,
meetup.
completely reasonable then. Seems like a good kid. He's into a thing. I would still recommend other games because D&D is surprisingly that's the other thing. So this is not as intentional, but D&D is for a game that markets itself as the beginner's role-playing game, right? It's the one that you start with. It's the most common one, the easy one. If you're going to get into something, why wouldn't you get into D&D? D&D is really fucking complicated compared to, like, a lot of other games. And it means that it becomes harder to convince people to try other things because they're like, okay, I'm going to have to learn something else that's going to be more complicated than this. And it's like, no, you're not. Right, you can if you want. There are games more complicated than D&D, and I love some of them quite a lot. But D&D is one of the most complicated systems out there for beginners.
I have spoken to multiple people who have been like, oh yeah, no, it'd be interesting to try other role-playing systems, but I just don't have the time to commit to learning and like buying the books for another whole system. I already know D&D.
That's actually me. That's the reason I keep playing D&D.
You can learn a system in a one-shot. That's like, you can at least get like passing familiarity with a one-shot to the point where you can play in it. And if you can play something, that's a good start.
I think that's probably hard just because not everyone has access to one-shots.
No,
right?
that is very true.
I can't... If I'm... Like, my regular D&D group, who I haven't really played much recently because I was like, this isn't fun anymore. I don't know if that was just because of D&D or RPGs or... I don't think it was the people.
Happens.
I enjoyed
actually, you know what? Something that
I think I might have just burnt out from DMing.
It could also just... Cam's role-playing advice time. Most games die. Most games will die. Not all games, not even half of games, will reach the conclusion you want them to reach before they fucking die. Human beings are very difficult. Storytelling is hard. Jack, you've lived a blessed life.
I'm balling my fist at the moment because Cam is giving excellent advice, but I cannot relate. I demand all my games reach a satisfying conclusion.
Yeah, I know. Oh, look, I'm currently... Look, I know, but it is like... Most
I'm
games.
just being a bit of a
What was my
smug
brain
priest.
even
games
going
die.
to be? I brought something up and then I can't remember. Cam,
Sorry.
keep going. No, that wasn't you.
But yeah, a lot of games die. But yeah, like D&D, and when D&D was just passively a big company that was doing well, it was like, all right, whatever. Like it's a little annoying if people are going to disregard other systems that may be better for what they specifically are wanting. Because it's not the thing that they've heard of, but that's that happens in all things everywhere, right? But yeah, it's that they've moved now into like active hostility zone.
So apart from just trademarking the world's greatest role playing game, what else?
So the fucking 5th edition, what is it? It's 5th edition SRD, yeah. Which I don't know what that stands for, but basically they've moved into leaning into the idea that D&D is the perfect system to run whatever it is you want to be running, when it's really not. D&D is good for if what you like about D&D works, it does well for running a high fantasy game with a specific like sort of power level and a level of complexity. There's a lot of assumptions you're making about the setting if you're running D&D that you have to really work around. A lot of people think D&D is great because you can like edit the rules to make it work for things. You can sometimes, but a lot of the time, if you're trying to do something that's not exactly what D&D is built for, chances are there's a better system for that really works with the mechanics to make that system, like to make that setting or that story feel more like what you're doing on the board. And I think the most egregious recent example of this is the L5R Adventures in Rakugan book. So L5R is a beautiful little game about an absolutely fucked up little society. It's based somewhat on feudal Japan, but it's got a lot of other countries mixed in there in some ways. It's about your noble samurai and their lives of being honorable, cool dudes, and that's fucked up because it turns out that being a noble samurai makes you an absolute piece of shit in a lot of ways. Because you know what, like, classism bad.
There's a lot of codes, and a lot of them are to perpetuate shitty things.
Yeah.
How do you explore an interpersonal drama in your role-playing game when your characters inherently are honor-bound and, like, shunned by society for showing even the slightest emotion?
God, I need to play the L5R RPG so much.
And that is, like, a very core part of the system and a very interesting sort of problem to explore.
Is that societally you're expected to not behave like a human being, right? You're expected to repress so much of what it means to be a person. Because that's what what the society expects of you, and the setting as a whole is xenophobic and it's cruel in a lot of ways, and that leads to really interesting character moments because your characters exist within this. They're not necessarily embodiments of all of the problems in the setting, but they can be, and it means that you've got things to fight with and fight against. It gives you conflict in a way that works really well, and it means that people say D&D is great for the story. It's the mechanics aren't important. The role playing is the important thing. One, it works in literally any system. That's why they're called role playing games. But two, boy, D&D is not actually very good for that. Like it has rules for social interactions, and they're among the most bare bones rules of anything, in a way that you have a hard success fail. Here's your modifier to that. Your character is either going to be very good at this or pretty bad at it. Like, maybe they're all right, but there's not much nuance to D&D as a system.
Oh, jeez.
Whereas,
Also, you've got a lot of thoughts on this.
I fucking warned you, John.
Cam is being so polite right now.
I'm
Can I just
holding
say
myself back as
he
hard
warned
as I
me
can.
about
this is the calmest
stairs.
we've ever been while discussing this.
I can feel my blood pressure trying.
I can see it, man. You're getting
okay.
Okay, now hold on. I gotta finish.
Oh yeah, we do need to come to the just
L5R
like
exists.
just like an
L5R
RPG campaign. This needs to come to a
that
satisfying
Legends of the Five Rings.
conclusion.
Yeah. It's a beautiful system as well. Mechanically, I love the last two editions of L5R. They're very different things. The thing with L5R is that, as I said, you can play a character that's got no ability to help out in combat at all. And in D&D, if you do this, you are actively harmful to the way the game is intended to be run, right? The mechanics are all there for playing a combat dude. If your character cannot hold their own in a fight, you are not working with the intent of the system. Like, yes, you can play a game where people are bad at fights, and that can be interesting.
You're a bit of a joke.
Yeah, it's a bit that is... It's
not necessarily that's bad. Silly characters I love.
Silly characters are great, but it is that, D&D is actually about combat. Like, that's what the mechanics are for.
Yeah.
You are actually shying away from the intent of the system.
And, D&D can shine as an absolute slugfest game, if that's the kind of game you like. If you want the mechanical, I don't know, I think there are better combat systems as well.
Okay.
But, aside from that, so, L5R, you can build a completely non-combat character. And if you build a completely combat character that's got no social abilities, you're actively harming the party in some ways, because you will fuck up in court. And if you can't, interpret orders from your boss, if you can't explain things to your boss why you've done something a certain way, you'll embarrass him. You'll embarrass your boss, and that's a huge deal in the setting. Now, Adventures in Rokugan is the official, right? Wizards of the Coast bought the ability to do this. They made an official L5R setting book, and it's a goddamn nightmare. Jack, do you want to take over for a bit here?
Yeah, I can talk about Adventures in Rokugan. Oh, goodness.
I've never played the L5R RPG, but this did make me upset.
So, as we were saying, with L5R, there is a lot of very nuanced setting elements that make for very different types of conflict than you would expect from, your normal Western fantasy. Your things like your Tolkien or your D&D. Wizards of the Coast in Adventures in Rokugan really decided, let's make the L5R world fit into D&D. We're not adapting anything. We are changing as much as we need to. And in doing so, they basically removed all of the conflict from the setting.
They removed all the interesting conflict from the setting. There's still demons.
Sure, but they have said now, there's the classic line that any disagreement between two people in the setting of Rokugan is purely an interpersonal issue and does not reflect any inherent biases of the society in which they live.
Yes, that is an outright statement. It's embarrassing.
Our samurai love foreigners. They're not xenophobic at all. You don't have to internalize that. They're very kind to the peasantry. The peasants live very comfortable lives. And, some might choose to even live in a horrible little peasant hovel over living in an opulent city, because the rustic charms are really lovely.
We're not exaggerating.
You can disappoint your boss so long as you tried your best.
Yeah.
Because you need to, Wizards of the Coast needs to make sure that you can play the L5R Adventures in Rokugan setting book exactly the same as you would play a game of Dungeons and Dragons, which means you're playing a group of, 3 to 5 people out on the road, adventuring, killing monsters, and doing dungeons.
3 to 5 people and 0 to 1 pigs.
Oh man, don't even get me started on pigs. I'm sure that you could just have pigs in Adventures.
Don't tell me they removed pigs.
We've rotted pigs
from
in
Rokugan.
L5R, it would be fucked up to eat pork.
Pigs are toxic and have no place at a role-playing table.
Don't say that about Gerald.
So yeah, for example, one of the biggest, most important issues in the setting is that a samurai is supposed to be part of this the empire. They're supposed to be servants of the empire, and therefore they are supposed to be able to, at any given moment, lay down their life for the empire. This could be in battle. This could be as committing seppuku in order to relieve the shame from you causing a big issue.
It's as an extension of you're not a person, you're property almost of your lord, right? Everything is so layered in society that your direct superior can just say it's your time to die, and you are expected to. You might not agree with it.
It's like a very rigid hierarchy.
It's horrifically rigid.
The symbol of office of a samurai is the wakizashi. It is a sword that you are expected to kill yourself with.
Yeah,
and that is why you carry it around with you at all times.
I'll put it.
That's fair.
Content at the start for that, but the thing with Rokugan as a setting is that it's fucked up, right? It's not a nice place to live. It's got some cool things in it, but it is a place which is flawed, and those flaws are something you can interact with. The Adventures in Rokugan sourcebook is that Rokugan sounds like a beautiful place to live. It really does. It's flawless, right? It is. Like, again, as Jack said, right, you could, as a peasant, choose to live in a small mountain village because that rustic peasant charm is nice. It might be what you want, right? Those guys are starving to death, is what the book sort of glosses over there. But it's not glossing over it. It's changed the setting. It's made it perfect and wonderful. And, it's a, again, beautiful progressive paradise. And that's neat, but it's not great to run a game in. Like, even most other regular D&D games, you've got your evil king, you got your feudalism, you've got your problems, right?
This just does sound pretty boring. I guess you can be like, there's someone trying to ruin it all.
Oh, it's cool. I'm an Eastern themed monster person, right? I'm playing as some kind of snake person or something, and that's neat and interesting. That's the point.
I'm part of a clan now.
It's also, so. It leads to a whole issue of if someone wants to play wants to try L5R, right? Wants to branch out to a thing they've heard about, but they play D&D. Now, right? If you, without us giving you this input, right? If you knew L5R was a thing you were excited about in a way, right? But you knew how to play D&D, you'd probably be interested in Adventures in Rokugan.
I definitely would. L5R is something I've been perpetually excited about and never engaged with.
Yeah,
for the past 5 years.
That's how it is with a lot of RPGs as well.
Not just RPG, just the whole franchise. I got okay.
I know.
I need to go into my L5R, my L5R fanboying, and by that I mean as much fanboying as you can do over a thing you have never played.
No, I've done this with so many things. I know exactly what you mean. But yeah, so you might try this out with your friends, and it might not be easy to get your friends on board for trying a new thing. But you're like, okay, I've got this D&D source book for it, right? Well, that's something that people don't understand already. They're on board. Let's try this one out. And it's bad. It's like I don't want to just say D&D hard bad, right? I personally don't think it's a great system. I've played a lot of systems. I feel qualified saying that it can be good for certain things, but it's not good for a lot of things. Adventures in Rokugan is hard bad. Like, it's just not good.
And it goes back to what I was saying. Like, in order to play D&D, you're 3 to 5 people. You are a group of adventurers on the road, fighting monsters, doing dungeons. And so Adventures in Rokugan is a setting in which they have changed the fundamental rules of the world to make that a thing that is normal and accepted in the society, which is not what L5R is.
It's really not. And in addition to that, they've also shown a staggering lack of confidence in their audience, I will say. Like,
yeah.
I'm going to get into this. Adventures in Rokugan thinks that
deeper.
you, as the audience, are, if not an idiot, that you're not...
Dungeons and Dragons
like,
player and I'm digging a hole.
Yeah, no, okay. They do not trust their audience not to be actively racist, given, a Japanese word. It's like they took out almost all instances of foreign words from the book, right?
Jesus.
L5R, we said wakizashi earlier. It's a side sword. We're probably not pronouncing it perfectly, but fuck, man, we learned a different word from a different language from this book. We learned a lot of them, and that's interesting and neat. Like, we've learned things from playing L5R that we otherwise wouldn't know. And yes, it's not actually Japan. It's in some ways almost a caricature, but it's grown its own identity in a lot of ways as well. But yeah, we took it seriously, and yeah, there's this assumption that if you're playing this, you can't be trusted with that, right? You can't be trusted to have a peasant class that is oppressed. You can't be trusted with having a character that is meant to be somewhat xenophobic, because if you do, you'll fuck it up, right? You'll make a character racist, and it won't be any fun. It's like having a character that is born into a society that is very, very like deeply xenophobic is a thing that you can roleplay through a growth thing for them, or you can roleplay through the consequences of being expected to be like to have traits that what we as well, at least what I as a progressive person I like to think would think is, abhorrent, right? Samurai in general, if they're a good samurai, they're not someone I want to know. Like, and that's an interesting thing to have as your core, like one of the core tenets of playing this game, but it's just gone. You cannot be trusted with any level of nuance. You can't be trusted with anything beyond, this is a perfect society. But it's got, some spooky monsters in the corners, and it's got some people who might have decided for their own personal reasons to be a little bit shitty about foreigners, but like that's on them as specific individuals. And it's just, yeah, if you've managed to convince your friends to try this game in this setting that you've heard so much about, you're going to play this, and it's not going to be very good.
You'll play Adventures in Rokugan, and you will receive the exact same thing as D&D, because they have changed it to be the exact same thing as D&D.
But in a weaker setting.
But in a weaker, very almost tokenistic setting.
Yeah. They've wrapped it clean round into like, this is a little bit less
there's no depth
culturally
anymore.
Sensitive.
Yeah. But, of course, to Wizards of the Coast, all things must be D&D, and only D&D, and to explore something else is just not what's going to make them money. Like you mentioned before, like, our sweet little straw boy, too precious for this world,
Frank
has done nothing wrong by coming to the game store and wanting to play D&D.
Like, we've all been there.
The issue is that, he exists in a world where if you Google world's greatest role-playing game, Dungeons & Dragons is the first result. Or when you try to play Dungeons & Dragons online, you will now be taken to the official Dungeons & Dragons virtual tabletop that is now removed from places like Foundry or Roll20. So you can go to the Dungeons & Dragons virtual tabletop where you will never, ever have to see the existence of any other role-playing game ever again. At least if you went to Roll20 and clicked on the D&D section, you would have noticed that there were other sections.
Yeah.
But no, they want to really start to isolate things. And I think it's very strange when people hear this sort of take first, because for the past 10 years, D&D's explosion in popularity has been genuinely very good for the industry.
Yeah.
For sure. Normalizing role-playing as a whole.
Yeah.
But now they're in the point where they've got the market share, and they're really doubling down on trying to create that isolated fan group. Yeah. And I am worried about it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think from what I've heard, that makes a lot of sense. Also, my own personal dislike of D&D is just, I really like playing character, having those kind of character stories and interesting characters. And I realize whenever I play D&D, it's just kind of gotta fight against that.
May I quickly go into a thing that I think is a core mechanic of a lot of systems that I really like, that D&D does not have anything that even approaches it, right?
Yeah.
Character flaws. Built-in mechanical ones.
There's a flaw box. It suggests some flaws when I choose my background. Cam, please don't eat the mic. The audience can't see, and I'll burst out laughing for no reason.
All right. There is a flaws box. There is a flaws box in D&D, and it does nothing. It does nothing. You can have a character that has a flaw you write in there, but it doesn't do anything, right? L5R in most editions.
It's kind of like a sticky note reminder for yourself.
Yeah, your character can have a flaw, and here's where it goes, and that's as far as that goes, right?
Yeah. It's remember to do this when you're role playing.
And even 5th edition recently got in some hot water in a few ways for things like having racial stat bonuses. That's if you're an elf, you're better at this thing, and
don't even get started on that.
There's a lot of history to that, and they've taken that away in a way that
means nothing.
It means nothing. But
sorry, can I just say we're removing the fact that dwarves get +2 constitution.
Yeah.
Now dwarves get +1 hit point every level or something. I'm that's still a thing that dwarves get because of the race that they are. That's not...
What I was saying, though, is that it goes beyond that, because before even that issue happened, right? That is already a dulled down version of it, right? Because there is no racial negative modifiers. And, like, yes, the idea of a race being actively worse at something because that's their race.
The drow have, like, bad in sunlight.
Bad in something, no, but, like, I'm talking, like, you used to get things like this race has, like, -2 strength off the bat. Like, goblins have fucking no strength, no toughness because they're fucking goblins, right? And, like, yes, if you're treating them as they are all functionally differently, like, different looking humans with the same physical capacity and, like, everything, that's obviously doesn't make any sense, but, like, even the idea of the characters cannot have mechanical flaws, right? They can't have active drawbacks that mean much. So in L5R, for the last 2 editions at least, and I assume further back as well, your characters get a pool of advantages and disadvantages, which is things that make your character stand out that they're better at. So what's a good advantage?
Keen reflexes.
Yeah, keen reflexes is an advantage you can take, or something like a good marriage. Like having a stable, happy marriage in L5R is an advantage you can take, where it's like, I have a wife that I love.
I love putting points into my wife loves me. She'll,
the fact that your wife loves, and like, equally, you can have drawbacks, right? Sorry. And drawbacks have mechanical like effects on you. You can have equally a fucking bad marriage that affects your character. It's like you can't go home and relax because your wife's there. Right?
You can be haunted as well.
You can be haunted, you can have like a missing limb that has effects, right? Because D&D is like, you can be a character that needs a mobility device, and apart from like the inclusion of stairs in a lot of things, that doesn't affect your character, right? And it's and that works for a lot of people. And I think that is not a bad concept of, like, let's say, your character has a mobility device. They are functionally the same as everyone else. And that's good in a lot of ways. But for a deeper story, being in a mobility device is not the same as, like, not being in one. And it affects your life in a lot of ways because society's not built for people in mobility devices. It makes your life a lot harder because people do build stairs. And public transport isn't set up right.
Yeah,
and a lot of places aren't accessible, right? That has effects on your life, and as a more complex story, your character's flaws should affect them. Like flaws is bad. Your character's disadvantages affect them. And if your character has, if you want your character to have real depth, then the things that make their life harder should actually affect them.
And not only that, but, like, for example, still speaking of L5R, because that's what we're using, like,
I love L5R.
The disadvantages you take in L5R make you worse at specific roles, depending on what they are, but also, whenever those come up, you get points of a different kind. You get things called void points, which actually encourages you to not shy away from the things that you're bad at, or even just to not pick things that you're never going to come up, that are never going to come up.
Yeah.
Like, it actively encourages you to roleplay through having these, like, issues that your character is not as good at.
And your mileage may vary on this, and L5R is definitely not for everyone. It is a lot of, like, you've got to be willing to deal with some at times pretty fucked up things. Although you don't have to as well. You can absolutely play a very lighthearted L5R game. I've run several. But yeah, your characters have real, like, differences from other characters as well. The amount of nuance in that. I've been in a game where there was one of, like, our best physical combat fighter had lost an arm before the campaign, right? And this made them not very good as a physical fighter because they were specialized in big two-handed weapons, right? They lost an arm. They had sort of side shuffled into a law enforcement or, like, investigative role because they couldn't really wield the weapons they were used to wielding anymore. And so as the party dynamic shifted because we had a guy whose whole deal was that he was a big fight man, right? He was a crab soldier. He fought and died on the wall. That's his job. But he didn't die. So he had to do something else. And that hurt that character in a lot of ways because he was expected to have just died, right? That was what was his real goal in life.
I think going back to Frankfurt...
wouldn't start with L5R for Frankfurt.
No, absolutely not.
I was just thinking about. I've never watched Critical Role, but I have watched Critical Role. I've watched, like, the first 3 episodes of season 3, and then stopped watching it because it's long. It's really long.
It's quite long.
And I know it didn't really hook me, but from what the gist I get from that, people like it because there are, like, interesting characters with, like, kind of flawed backstories and stuff, right? Or like tragic
I assume
past.
so. Your tragic past is a classic staple of any RPG.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, this is a pretty lukewarm take here, but if you're going to live a life where your main like job is to fucking wander around doing acts of violence upon things, something's already gone wrong there, right? Like,
I mean, I think the murder hobo is looked down upon even in D&D.
sure, but even as like I'm a valiant knight and I wander around doing murders on monstrosities for a living, right? That's still like, God, that's fucked up. Were you raised to do that, or did you decide to do it? Like, what causes you to become a paladin that is actively like, I am going to
the streets
Jesus.
at a young age.
And what, were you picked up by the church who then like pushed you into the paladin path, or is that just a thing some people do?
I picked myself up and I found the most powerful god I could, which is
Flips open the book to like the specific god page.
Oh, that's a good segue for me if you want.
Into what? God?
The specificity of D&D, sorry. People think that D&D is a very generic system as a setting, right?
Yeah.
Sure, like the mechanics aren't particularly generic, but like, you know, D&D is a generic system. It's not.
We're on our way to an hour.
Yeah, man. Look, I warned you. I told you this was not a good idea, and I'm in it now.
We're in too deep again.
This is just how it is with me. So D&D, and I get it. It is somewhat generic in that it is similar to a lot of things that are more Western fantasy generic. It is built with a framework similar to the Tolkienian framework, which is what a lot of Western fantasy is based off. You've got your elves, you've got your dwarves, you've got your like things going on with
Your
them.
humans, your halflings.
You've got your humans, your halflings, right? But D&D also has a lot of assumptions about where you take that, right? You couldn't really run the Fellowship of the Ring in D&D because, one, the ability to build a little guy whose whole biggest thing is like he's just sort of here trying his best, right? It's not a good setting for that. Not a good system for it, but also you've got spells and gods, right? The way clerics and paladins work, that is in and of itself definitely not something that's consistent, right? That changes in almost any fantasy setting.
Yeah.
The way that your gods work, the way that your planes work.
So yeah, we've talked
planes
about
are
that before.
such a big deal. Like the explanation of how planes work and what they are, and like your primordials and your devils and demons.
People talk about that like it's generic, and it's
not.
not.
It's really
that's a
not.
setting.
I think for me, when I play D&D, the solution is ignore the gods and the planes.
Yeah. But if your solution to
make up my own
like
gods.
something is to just ignore it, that's not a solution. And again, like that, I've done the same, right? I've built my own ones. A fun thing I did, I tried to run a D&D game as a fresher game because I knew people wanted D&D, and this was before I really decided my hardline stance of I'm not ever doing that again. I think when a GM wants to run something, that's the best reason to play that thing. If a GM doesn't want to run something, they should not run it. But I had a world that was only half formed. And so there were sections of the literal like maps that the characters could have, right? The world was fully formed about 5 years ago, and the characters remember being like brought into being 5 years ago, right?
Okay,
and
that's
so
really
like your
sick.
big organizations are like your cartographers guild because they have to figure out what the fuck is going on because like yes, they have maps, right? Because the maps spawned in with everything else, right? When the world came into existence, there was societies, there was you've got your archaeologists guild who go and look at ancient ruins because those ancient ruins are of societies that never existed. Why are they there? And I let the players each determine, like, I was just like, fuck it, everyone name a god, session 1. Give me the name, give me what they do. And we had some really neat ones. The god Akol, god of looking after dudes what's killed. When you die, Akol turns up and he's like, hey man, I got you. And he looks after you when you've been killed. And a whole god dedicated to just looking after people that,
Cam,
like, not
stop.
just anyone
You're
that
making me
dies,
really
but
want
gets
to play
killed.
D&D.
Right? D&D
But
was
of
the
the
hardest part of
specifics.
this. There were sections of the map that weren't done, by the way, where like you could go there and it was blurry, and there was things that weren't finished. I loved that setting. It was a lot of
That's
fun
so
to make.
fucking cool. Oh my god.
Right? But like, and like that can work, but that can work anywhere. No part of D&D, and part of this setting was me trying to like unfuck the things that I really struggle with D&D. The way that level progression works is a lot to maintain disbelief for me. Your progression in D&D is insane.
I hate the progression in D&D so much. I was trying to run a campaign, or my last D&D campaign. It was the kind of point of it was like there's like these two nations and there's some new tensions in them. I'm going to go to my D&D world, which was this one was it was one big island which had a nation on it. Eventually there was like a uprising because some people didn't like how it was run, and now there's two nations. All the PCs arrive at a town overlooking near the border, which is a giant river, and then all of a sudden fire bursts out all across the other nation, and they venture across the river and they find out every single person has been turned into this into some demonic humanoid thing. Tieflings. The nation is Tief.
That's fun.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the name. But anyway,
people love tieflings, and I get it.
Yeah,
God, I get it. Like my first character, like when I was a fucking high schooler looking through D&D, trying to convince my friends to play it, I built my tiefling paladin, man.
My first character was
lives
also
in my
a
soul,
tiefling,
right? Because
think.
they're a lot of fun. They're edgy little dudes.
Yeah, mine was a tiefling. Mine was a tiefling ranger lone wolf type. I remember the first session where I was so bad. I was such a bad player. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to my hut now. And I'm like thinking to my DM. He's like, he didn't give me a reason to stay in the party.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go back to my hut. I'm gonna do something. I'm
okay.
like, and I realized now I'm like, shit, man. Did I just not want to play the game?
Cam's role-playing tips. Fucking have a reason to stay with the party. Holy shit.
Just don't play a lone wolf.
Talk to your GM. Talk to the party first. Have that ready. But if your character doesn't want to stay with the gang and you're working with them for that, you are fucking.
Why are you playing a party-based game?
Me pointing at the players, like, do what you have to rationalize accepting the little quest at the start.
Ooh, should I go into the Cam
it
threshold?
has to be done.
Yeah.
What the
fuck's the
It's a
Cam
bit unrelated,
threshold?
but it's a fun RPG
Can I talk
thing.
about the level? The
All right, yes. No, you go, and then I'll go Cam threshold.
Right. There was a civil war. It happened 10 years ago. Now all these people are demons. The king dies soon after. He's assassinated. All these tensions, right? Because all these.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, the tensions
People
rose
be
up.
getting
So
upset.
people are using this to be like xenophobic and whatnot to the people of the other country. The tensions are rising because the king's died.
This is a pretty
The new
standard tension
Yeah,
situation.
exactly. The thing is, when I want to have this interesting like civil war kind of plot going of these tensions between the new nations eventually going to war, and the PC's like picking a side, and like choosing how to help or whatnot. It really sucks when they want to level up all the time, and then eventually level up, and they can no longer. Like, I can't be like, haha, you're fighting some soldiers or something, because they will just decimate them.
You're forced to implement World of Warcraft guards.
I literally am. I put some guards there, and it's like they almost kill them, and I'm like, they almost get to like, the big bad, who was supposed to. This was supposed to be like a fight they cannot win kind of thing, or like they save someone and then leave, and they almost kill him, and I'm like,
whenever I do,
I just have to make
interact
these guards like literally unkillable.
Whenever I interact with D&D, the first thing I get rid of is the way experience works, because if you can get experience by just beating up things.
Oh, I always use milestone.
Yeah,
I was like, you guys level up now.
Absolutely same. Because the idea that like either everyone has this option, right? Either it's something that like because mechanics influence the setting. They do. The fact that your character can, as a fighter, do this thing implies that that's a thing people can do. Yeah, either your characters are special little boys who can level up when no one else can, and that's fucked up in and of itself. And I lent into that in my setting because it was like not everyone was able to do that because some people didn't realize how fucked up it was that they only came into being 5 years ago, right? But if you became aware of like, wait a minute, I remember the world coming into place and it has a history already, that like sort of sets you off as like a person who can go insane.
For me,
right? Like,
I did milestone and I always tried to tie it in to the story. Like there's
you outstrip the things that you fight.
Yeah, or like they find something happens, right? And then there's like they've discovered this magical artifact which hints to how the tieflings are created. They touch it and it like releases like a burst of magic which then they absorb and they level up.
Okay, yeah.
Real Highlander rules.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's
obtain
cool.
that
I always like to do something. I had another campaign which they were working for an evil god.
I just gave him shit.
And the evil god was... So they did like a ritual to get in contact with the evil god. They got sent to another realm, which everything's dark, and they see these eyes in the dark, and they leave it, and they're like... The magic that was like in the cauldron they stick their hand into is then absorbed into them.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's a good way.
I will say, you guys talking about being frustrated with like encounter balancing makes me very excited to be a Call of Cthulhu GM where I simply do not balance the encounters.
No, man, like encounter design is a passion of mine. It's part of it's the one of my first games I was ever in, the first campaign I was in really, was Adeptus Evangelion, the game about being a traumatized teen in a fucking giant robot.
You know it, baby.
It's a
Game I
boss
need to
fight
play
game,
as well.
right? You generally only fight things of the scale of giant robots once every 3 sessions. You have a fight, right? So each encounter has to be very special and well done. And I have GM'd a lot of that ever since. I don't always get it right. God knows it's a hard game to get all the fights right, but I've had some really fights I've really been proud of in that system as encounter design. D&D doesn't lean towards that.
What's the
very
cam threshold?
well. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's not named after you, funnily
It's not.
enough.
No, it's named after Cam, my good friend Cam.
I'm
I
glad you're
love
friends
him.
with yourself.
He's
Love yourself, Cam. You deserve it.
So the Cam threshold is the point in a game where you can no longer justify letting a party member survive. So you're in a party with someone, right? You've been playing this campaign with them for a while.
I'm raising an eyebrow at you.
If like an NPC stranger walked in off the street and did, let's say, there's a lot of things that a stranger could do that the party would immediately be like, this person's going to get like either fucking beaten up and taken to jail or like killed, whatever, right?
Basically anything when it comes to my group.
Yeah. But if a member of the party does it, it's like, oh, we'll justify this. Because even if your character wouldn't justify that, right? Even if it's fucked up objectively, you're like, look, it's another player at the table. I don't want to make a fuss. I don't want to just kill the other player as well. That's usually frowned upon. You can get away with a lot more as a member of the party.
A member of the party can collect teeth and, look at dark crystals and things like that, and it's fine.
That's
Don't
because you
worry about
agree
it.
as a player at the table, there's the social contract of we're here to play the game together.
Yeah,
we're a part of
that's
the
just
team.
Hillbilly Smith. He collects toes and teeth.
Right? The cam threshold is the point where you're like, I don't know, man. I don't think we can maintain any semblance of real role playing whilst letting you live.
You gotta go. Your
You
character
gotta be-
is abominable.
You can't do that in front of us because we will have to kill you. Like it's the point where it's like you could do this off, like you can go off to the side and do that, and because we don't know it's happening, we can roleplay not killing you, right?
What did Cam do?
Oh, he's hit the threshold is the point. It's named the Cam threshold because he hits it eventually in every game. Sometimes
Speaking of
more than
homebrewing
once.
for D&D, remember that special
look.
corruption mechanic?
Yeah, he loves a corruption mechanic.
Corruption mechanics.
Any kind of mechanic where your character can take dark pacts to get power, but at a cost. He'll do it.
Thought that was just playing Warlock.
Well, I mean, L5R is one of the first games that this really cropped up in. There's the Taint. That's what it's called, the Shadowlands Taint. It fucks you up. It's permanent. You can mitigate the effects and stop it from getting worse, but it's almost impossible to heal the Taint, right? Once it's there, and it gets worse, and your character doesn't actually immediately or even ever like get worse as a person for having it, but it gives you options and makes you a little bit fucked up, and it is contagious, is the thing. And it's considered a very bad thing. You're not even allowed to talk about this stuff most of the time because it's like, we're not saying like it's illegal to talk about, although it generally is, but it's like it's considered disgusting to even think about. If you bring it up in a polite setting, you'll be shunned. You just sort of found a tainted bird in an alleyway and just...
Delicious.
Dude, did you just eat that clearly tainted pigeon?
Tainted dove, do not eat.
Yeah, and I think that was done without the rest of the party seeing it, but that was like the moment I was like, oh, he's fucked.
Look, the evil Shadowlands powers are a fun little area to play
I love
with.
Cam. On at least 4 occasions, he has been a mini-boss, in that his character has crossed the threshold, and I've been like, alright, man, I'm not letting you keep him.
Oh, I remember having to fight Chad Bane.
Chad Bane was... Oh, yeah, 5 times then. Chad Bane was good. Chad Bane was honestly one of the most tame ones.
Yeah, it
too.
wasn't that bad.
Chad Bane, world's fucking thickest tech priest.
Jack, do you have any, like, Cam, how much more do you need to...
No, that's about it for the cam social. That's what it is.
Jack, do you have any more... what are your favorite RPG stories?
Sorry, I've been going a lot this one.
Ooh, RPG stories. I have run a lot, like I said, I've run a lot of Call of Cthulhu, which is very interesting in that, like, the world building is far less important because it is set, by and large, in the modern day on
Arguably,
Earth.
that makes the world building the most important. But...
So that, like, it's a setting everyone can engage with because it's our setting.
Boy, it's generic because it's just you can run it in Perth if you want.
Yeah, and I have.
I've played... The first time I played Call of Cthulhu, I think it was set in Perth.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, like, the traditional settings, like the 1920s, like, set around, like, the Lovecraftian stories.
Yeah.
But you can run it in modern, you can run it in the 50s, you can run it whenever you want, really. But I recently... Not recently. I ran a campaign that took 2.5 years to finish, and it was a pre-written campaign for Call of Cthulhu called Masks of Nyarlathotep.
How often were you playing?
Weekly. We did have a bit of a hiatus in the middle because due to 2020, but functionally weekly. It took like 100 sessions.
Wow,
it was enormous, and it is probably the best campaign I've ever sort of like been part of, just because it's a globe-trotting, like, cult-destroying, like, universe-saving adventure when you're just playing as these normal people who are absolutely wrapped up in this...
They're in so far over their heads.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to... I feel like I should give, like, a little bit of a spoiler warning or something, because there's this one really cool thing that happens right at the start of the campaign.
So what was the campaign called again?
It's called Masks of Nyarlathotep.
Okay, spoilers for
Nyarlathotep
that.
is the name of the god. But yes, brief spoilers for the start of that campaign. Because there is a prologue in which you are basically a group of people who are called out to Peru to partake in this archaeological expedition. And over the course of this prologue, you like discover there's some evil stuff going on and you stop it. But there's an NPC that you meet by the name of Jackson Elias, who is this like cool author of sort of occult mysteries, and he's come to sort of research spooky stuff, and he's a bit of a skeptic.
Like a 90s Sarkis reference, but go on.
But yeah, but Jackson Elias basically becomes the party's coolest friend. He helps the gang out, he saves the day, and then after the prologue, there's a few years of a time skip, and then the whole party gets a letter from him saying to come and meet him in New York, because he's got a big thing he's got to tell everyone. And this is the spoiler coming up now, but basically you arrive in New York and you walk into this hotel room and you find Jackson Elias has been murdered. And the entire thrust of the campaign is this guy has been compiling knowledge of something really horrible, and you now have to piece together and trace his steps back and try and uncover what it was that he wanted to talk to you about.
That's such a hook.
Yeah. And it was just the moment of the party, like, walking in and seeing it and having everyone, like, scream, no! Because this prologue does such a good job of, like, humanizing this character and making you think they're going to be sticking around and they're, like, become important
this is our friend, Jackson.
This is our
We love
friend.
him.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's such an interesting sort of character-driven mystery as opposed to, like, the setting, which is really cool. It's got lots of dark gods and I love it. But, yeah.
It is just sort of the 20s.
It is just sort of the 20s.
Like, you can, in theory, have a Call of Cthulhu game where nobody in the town realizes that there's anything going on.
It's
a lot of games. Yeah. Sometimes the scale gets big enough that people know what's going on, but, like, yeah, like, you could run a Call of Cthulhu campaign that has big consequences that no one would ever have heard of, that could have just happened in real life and you just didn't hear about it because it's subtle. It's neat.
Talking about good RPG stories, can I share one which hasn't happened, but I've got a good idea?
Hell yeah.
This whole conversation makes me really want to play more RPGs, because I haven't for a while, ever since I stopped playing D&D regularly with my group. I have like a non-regular D&D game with some friends, and that's going all right. But one game I kind of wanted to learn was Delta Green, which is like Call of Cthulhu, in that it's supernatural kind of investigative
same
paranormal
sort of problem.
It's the same sort of problem of like,
made
you
by
know,
the
Cthulhu
same
shit.
guys?
So Delta Green was a Call of Cthulhu setting book back in the like 80s and 90s.
Yeah, that lines
that
up.
in 2016 got rebooted into its whole own system.
Yeah, and the main difference is that you are like agents working in a. You're government agents rather than just
Think of Call of Cthulhu meets like the X-Files. You are government goons going to solve problems.
SCP-ish, that kind of thing.
Sometimes,
like the game control, the government bureau that is secret and goes and does paranormal things,
I think
which is one of my favorite kind of
Yeah, it's fun.
like settings.
I think something very important about it as well is that it's not like you're all military goons as well. Sometimes you're like a librarian that stumbled upon it and you've been brought into the Delta Green organization.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time,
Yeah.
like even the military guys, they're not Delta Green full time. They're like, oh yeah, no, I'm a Black Ops guy for like whatever this for this military wing. Sometimes I get told to do a thing and I have to just justify that to the rest of my team. And I have to just leave.
When the Dropbox has a mission for you, you have to do it.
If you see that green triangle, you drop whatever the fuck you're doing, even if it's your son's goddamn birthday again, and you deal with the problem.
You would not believe the sort of shit the post office worker sees, you know?
And like that the issues that causes though, like the breakdowns of your relationships and your like home life, that's a core set of the mechanics to Delta Green. It's
This
really cool.
kind of internal struggle and like sheer reading some of the like the excerpts and stuff and the stuff they have in the rulebook
lore
and
tabs.
seeing how like painful it was for all the characters, how they just fucking do it because they've already ruined their life doing it. Who else will, basically?
And like it's important if someone's got to stop that shit.
And I imagined like a Delta Green 1-shot, 3-shot that I'd run, or like a campaign where it starts with you getting in contact with another agent who comes and gives you your mission. Which is kind of weird because usually none of the agents really have contact with each other that much.
like a
depending.
handler
But he just
sometimes.
like, he gives you the mission with like very flat affect. He's very formal looking or whatnot. He looks like a real agent. He's like, he comes to you and he's like, this is my last mission just to inform you what's going on. And then I get to retire or whatever.
my God,
Says your whole thing.
retirement.
You get to ask any questions. And as soon as he's like, okay, are we done here? As soon as the party says yes, he just like kills himself.
Oh, I've actually run.
God damn it! Have you stolen my idea? Fuck. Also, I'm. We already have that content warning for this episode.
Yeah,
so
we do.
True.
That's why I felt okay doing it.
No, I gave the party like an immediate, like primary first thing. Like you've got to go here for the mission. At no point are you allowed to go underground. If you go underground, if you have already been underground, it is too late. You know what to do.
Oh.
And like they get
bless
there and it's like,
America.
where's the seventh guy? And he's just not there.
Yeah, no, I've been writing a Delta Green game for the past like several years that will one day be like my
You've
ultimate.
been writing a game for several years.
Oh, I'm nuts. Like, how I said I've been like running role playing games for like, since 2015. I've been GMing non-stop for approaching a decade.
Sick.
I'm currently running my 4th campaign.
Yeah, Jack's a really long-term like game runner.
You will play in my game for like 2+ years, and it will get to the end.
To be fair, I've been playing that long and only played in like 4 campaigns, but they just all kind of none of them had satisfying endings. Really.
I've only run a.
if I'm
Yeah.
or
Jack
any
is-
other game didn't last that long.
Jack is a hilarious outlier for this.
I'm
Again,
deranged.
I do remember I played on you one time. We played Paranoia. I was like
love
very
Paranoia.
new to uni games. It was probably like one of my favorite RPG sessions I played. So thank you for running that.
Yeah, no, that
I'm
was-
sad I had to leave early.
Is it the one you had to get the cup of coffee to the bureaucrat or something?
yes,
and that was the entire plot, is that
The
Fred
entire
Computer
plot.
needs you to deliver this
I
one
remember
thing.
I had to leave at the central moment, which is like the lights went off, and then like some shit was going down because we had like conflicting.
Everyone in
goals.
Paranoia has conflicting like secret interests and secret powers and stuff.
My character had like the tech telepathy, which is super useful but extremely dangerous because if they find out,
Yeah, if you're a mutant, you get killed on sight.
yes, and also because it's like the only one that can change the program,
Yeah,
of the thing, which makes you extra dangerous.
Machine empathy, I think it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, it lets you fuck with the computer.
So I
and the
use that to
computer
turn
runs
the
society.
lights back on and try and catch out the other things.
That's
For
right.
reference, almost every character in Paranoia has some kind of thing that if the others find out, it's kill on sight.
I love the pitch of that.
It's
Which
rare not to have something like that.
you said like the one thing the computer hates the most is mutants and cults, and you're a mutant in a cult.
Yeah.
Everyone has something to hide. Is
yeah.
like a core part of Paranoia.
I was part of
and, like,
the gamer cult, the Leak
Nice.
Speak cult. Not enough time to play RPGs these days. It sucks.
You know what?
Cam, when are we playing the Homestuck RPG you
fuck,
made?
man. Okay, probably after semester. Really.
Yeah.
At the very least, once my last assignments are in, I've only got one exam, so
Yeah.
I can really start thinking about things then.
Cam is homebrewed New World of Darkness, which is an RPG to be about Homestuck. We're bringing it back another
Yep,
episode.
no, it's time. Okay, and if you are familiar with New World of Darkness and Homestuck, which is probably not too many of you, I can count the number of. Oh, you know what? No, it's a good few people I know, but that's because of the way that I am as a person.
We've already
it sounds like a
alienated all the
terrible
D&D
idea.
players.
It's called World of Darkness. It's grim. It's edgy. It's fucked up. I've put in the work
But
to
it's got
make
some
it
nice little
feel
dice pools,
positive and,
yeah.
and friendly in like a way that it's about a bunch of kids playing a game together who are friends. That's core to the way I built that. But yeah. So we'll get to that, man.
My favorite
I hope we
part
get to
of that
one
is
day.
the fact your character has like specialties in the skills, right?
Yeah, that's a core part of like regular.
And my character is a massive cyberpunk sci-fi nerd. I don't put any of myself into my characters at all. But so my character has is very skilled in science with the specialty fiction.
Yeah.
Which I'm very happy about.
Yeah. And yeah. Again, coming back to like flaws in games and how they make things more interesting.
We're coming back.
I added the anti-specialty system, which is for something that your character really wishes they were good at, but they're not.
I think mine was ice hockey.
Yeah, you really wanted to be good at sports, but you just fucking weren't. And so you can still roll it, and you are still, like, you have to have at least some ranks in the skill. You have to know how to do it. But you've got a largely increased chance of it going catastrophically wrong, because that's funny when your character catastrophically fucks up something they really love. But yeah, I don't know. Talking of Delta Green and Call of Cthulhu was really also jumped me back to, like, power scale in games. Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green, you can play as, like, a janitor, and that's a pretty useful skill set.
Yeah, you've got janitor-based knowledge.
You know where a janitor can get? Basically wherever, man. You clean that
Janitor's
floor.
got a key ring with all the keys on it.
Yeah, oh man, elevator repairman would be such a sick build in Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, you imagine how many points in climb you get.
Bro, I'm going full elevator
But
repairman
like
in this game.
you know how easy it
new
is to
meta.
like fucking hide in somewhere if you've got elevator keys?
Oh, one roleplay for life, we were playing Call of Cthulhu, and I played a Transperth security officer.
That was great.
I was just the guy who checks your tickets on Transperth, and I was great.
Excellent.
Yeah, like, God, there are a lot of games where you just play as fucking, like, regular dudes or worse, and a lot of them are a lot of fun.
I think that ties into my leveling complaint of D&D, because I wanted my
You get
players'
insane.
characters to stay regular dudes, or, like, somewhat close.
D&D's not the system for it,
No,
yeah.
it is not.
It's really
Talking
not.
about key rings, sadly we missed out on the Nona the Ninth
drop.
launch
Yeah, I'm
at
sad about
Stefan. Today was at our good friend Stefan Books in Perth. Go check him out.
Sponsor of UNIS for the club that's letting us use
Little
their
sponsor
equipment.
of the show. Stefan, come on the show.
Doesn't directly sponsor the show, but really he does, because he sponsors
indirectly
the club
sponsors
that
the
has
show.
the equipment.
Nona the Ninth launch, the new Locktomb book, which is the series Gideon and Harrow in. We're bringing
We've
it back
brought it up.
another episode. That and Homestuck every week.
So it really is mostly those two, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm very sad because I missed out on getting pins. Thanks to Harlow for saying I could have one of theirs.
Nice.
For a moment, I did think you were about to announce some sort of, like, UniSFA podcast equipment keychain merch.
Oh, that'd be sick. We need to get Overheard and UniSFA merch. We can, like, get the little clip art I
We've got
used
UniSFA shirts.
of the guys talking that looks like a vase.
I don't think we can use clip art on official merch, man.
I'm using clip art on the official, like...
No, let's
you know,
get a really
thumbnail.
zoomed in shitty picture of Jack. I know a guy who has several.
Oh, you know a guy who can hook you up.
Can we
It's
get
true.
the picture of Ed that's, like, the really... The smile?
Yeah.
Ed, I know you listen to the podcast.
Yeah, no,
Post this picture
the
in the
merch
Discord.
is all guests that have been on the show once. And John and I
Oh,
never
I would
show
love...
up.
You just get a pin of each guest, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also the freaky thing of someone said that Tamsin Muir was there, which she is, but on a Zoom call.
Yeah, but that's-
which is still sick.
Well, because Stefan's... shout out to Stefan's books again. I'm going to go ham on this. I love this
Oh, yeah,
guy.
absolutely.
Stefan's a really... Every time I've gone to that bookstore, I've been like, Stefan, my man, recommend me a book. And he doesn't know me. He's seen me like maybe 10 times across my life. He fucking absolutely nails in, like just zooms in on exactly the
Oh
thing
yeah,
that I want.
I walk in to buy a book and I leave with 5.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he
no,
knows,
that's
and they're
it.
all books that I'm like, oh, this was really good. And it's not like he's just, like, recommending, like, books that are good. Because, well, yeah, he does, but, like, he reads you pretty good. He's got a real knack for it.
Got an eye.
Stefan's books sold the most copies of either Gideon or Harrow, I forget which one, of any
I've
bookstore in
heard
Australia.
Gideon.
Yeah, I think it was, it might have been both. But yeah, it was at least one of them. More than any other store in Australia, because it's a really neat store.
I still need to read Gideon the Ninth.
Oh, you've got it.
I know I've got it in the household now, and I also, during 2020, when I was on committee, I did borrow UniSFA's copy, and I really did abuse the fact that I was on committee to like have that book for probably a couple more months than I should have, and I couldn't find the time to read it. And
Gideon's
I still
up there.
need to do
You can
it.
get it out.
There
Yeah,
is
I
enough
know.
copies in our house that we
Yeah.
lent a copy of Harrow to Ed to read quickly before Nona was released.
Yeah, he fucking zoomed through that. Jesus
Oh, yeah.
Christ!
It's not,
I'm
they're not
only
that big.
halfway through.
They're not huge books. If you go very fast with reading, you can do it in a couple days. But if you're taking it at a reasonable speed, you can't. I'm just a monster.
You are a monster, but you've been very helpful just like gunning through all of that Tolkien content
Yeah,
so that
Jack-
you can help me with the burden that I am currently carrying.
For reference, just as a bit of a fun trivia bit about Jack here, my friend Jack, my housemate Jack, who I love, Jack promised that if I was able to like really read the Silmarillion and like have proper discussions with him about it, he'd read Homestuck.
Yes, because Cam has been trying to get me to read Homestuck for years.
Yes, because I thought
and
you'd like it.
I just never never got around to it. Didn't have anything
I-
like against it. But
You know,
like,
I got through all of Lord of the Rings, and I got through most of the Silmarillion. I tried reading one of the like specific story books, like where they take one chunk of the Silmarillion and make it a whole book. Those are very dry.
I love them.
It's
They are dry.
they
it's
have
true.
very little in the way of character interactions.
This
Like
is
they
a
don't
s-
have what I really liked about Lord of the Rings, but that's besides the point.
This is a sick trade. I love doing this.
Jack was like, "Nah, I'll get to Homestuck eventually," and he was putting it off and putting it
Yeah.
off. This motherfucker had secretly read Homestuck in his room at like with the door closed because like I didn't realize because I was starting a new job and like working, so I couldn't be up late hanging out with him anymore. Dude read Homestuck like
Yeah.
secretly as a
I
bit so
put-
that he could reveal to us.
I put like 8-hour days into reading Homestuck for about a week, and then one day, like I'm having breakfast downstairs, and Cam is gushing to me about this new Homestuck video game on Steam. It's called the Genesis Project.
It's pretty neat.
And Cam had just found that, and so he's talking to me about it, and I'm like, wow, that sounds pretty interesting, but I guess it would be like a bit more like exciting if you actually knew anything about Homestuck. And he's like, yeah, I guess, you'll need to read Homestuck to understand. And I'm like, well, it's a good thing that I do know what you're talking about, because I have read Homestuck.
I love that.
And yeah,
So
I
much
revealed that I
respect for that
secretly
dude.
read the entire thing.
What did you think of it?
I really liked it. I think I both lost a lot by not having read it as it was coming out, but at the same time, I gained a lot.
Yeah,
I'm also glad that I was 24 when I read Homestuck, because I
Yeah.
can definitely understand how people like had their whole psyche consumed by it if they were younger.
Wouldn't happen to anyone I know.
Can't relate. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. But yes, there was
Nice.
there's a lot of stuff with like the author inserts and things like that just sort of came off a bit weird. That like I'm like, I guess you had to be there.
some of those are just bad.
Oh yeah,
It's a wonderful. It's got its flaws,
oh yeah.
Oh,
but
fuck,
yeah.
so many flaws. It's so
but it's
flawed.
in my opinion, it makes up for them.
The absolute best thing about it, though, was the fact that I can now actually understand what Cam and Merlin are saying at any given point. Because I've found out that, like, a good 30% of the sentences that those guys say are just Homestuck quotes. And not
Or, like,
even that.
references.
Yeah, not even that. It's just, like... It's not even, like, proper Homestuck references. It's, like, E-tier Homestuck bits.
Yeah, Jack had the odd experience of reading Homestuck and keeping being like, that's a reference to that thing my housemates keep saying.
Yeah. Like, I kept...
As opposed to like the
I had
visual
con-
of like,
yeah.
oh man, if my housemates keep making Homestuck bits. It's like, no, Homestuck keeps saying the things that my housemates have been saying for years.
I'm like, wow, a lot of the stuff that Cam says are like direct quotes from Roxy, who is like absolutely
Roxy-
blasted at the time that she's saying that.
Roxy did some damage to my vocabulary, but as I
Yeah.
said, Homestuck is very good for letting you just do what you want with the English language. And I read that and was like, that's what I want to do with the English language.
yeah,
there it
that's
is.
fair.
That's
It's
how-
paying
that's
off
how
for
I
you.
want it to be.
As this podcast says, we've been absolved of all our sins.
Yes. Thank fuck.
Thank you for listening to this at home or on the bus.
Yeah.
What's that, Doug? I should play Dungeons and Dragons. Doug, it's very... Are you telling me I should... God damn
Doug,
it.
you son of a bitch.
Cam, that's staying in.
Yeah, that was the sound of me, like,
We don't
putting
have
Doug in
too much
the
time
ground.
left, but I want you to talk about Lord of the Rings, because I remember the first... Apart
Alright.
from that RPG...
Quick side note.
You have no idea how broad of a question that is.
Quick side note. Jack is currently the record holder, as far as I'm aware of showing somebody one episode of the new Lord of the Rings show and making it take 5 times as long as the
Oh, that
episode
sounds
does,
fantastic.
because he cannot go through like more than a couple of minutes without having to pause it and go on a fucking rant. It's beautiful.
At our
I've seen
household,
him do it
every
twice.
Friday, everyone gathers around to watch me watch the new Lord of the Rings show.
Can I be invited to this?
watch you bitch about it, but like, and then like with the occasional bracketing of like a short clip from the show.
This could be its own podcast. I think this was one of the podcasts that was suggested when we first bought this equipment.
Oh, I think the issue is that Amazon would sue us instantly.
Oh, yeah.
Worth it. The other main interaction I had with you when I first joined like Cam Hall was Joint Camp 2 years ago when you talked about the Silmarillion and it turned into like a 3-hour
Yes,
long
with the
lecture on
whiteboard.
Lord of
And I
the
That
was
is-
drunk.
I remember being like, okay, we're done for real now. You guys can go to sleep. And then pulling up a chair and hearing you talk about like how the dwarves were made.
It was my greatest pride and my greatest shame that, like, I had written out the title of each book of the Silmarillion, and Donald puts his hand up halfway through and says, I just want everyone to know that Jack has not only labelled every book of the Silmarillion correctly, he has also spelt them all correctly, including all of the little, like, language, like, the umlauts and stuff.
Yeah,
Shout out to Donald, friend of the show.
Jack's speech on like why you should read the Silmarillion actually is what convinced me to read the Silmarillion.
Sorry, I think that camp debate night changed me because that was the night I also learned about Homestuck and convinced me to read that.
That camp debate night was one of like okay.
And also I learned about Scub and I burst out laughing for like 5 minutes.
That night will never be repeated in quality. That was a real
No.
fucking. That was a psyche damaging evening for everyone.
There was talk about. Sorry, we're talking about Cam Hall Joint Camp 2 years ago. It was called
an
Camp in
event
3D.
that, UniSFA, the club that lets us use their equipment,
Yes.
runs. Well, it helps run every year. It's a lot of fun. If you're the kind of person who might enjoy that, you should go.
Definitely. One of the events was debates, which is people write down debate topics over the course of the camp, which is a weekend, and then we debate them in the end.
Someone
And there
else
was
has
some
to be like,
banger
I'll argue
debates.
with you on that.
Yeah, there was some banger debates. There was the final one was Lord of the Rings. What was it? The
I think it's
topic
because
like
we
similar.
were all
It was like,
no, we
Tolkien,
want to keep
it was like
listening to
Tolkien
Jack.
is overrated or
Yeah,
something.
we literally just wanted to.
No, I think it was your topic, and it was that the Silmarillion should be required reading.
Yeah,
Something
something
like
like that.
Like for all fantasy enjoyers.
There was
or
that.
something.
There was something about Homestuck. Merlin talked about
Homestuck is good,
supernatural for
actually.
ages. The topic was just supernatural,
yeah,
which is very
For
Merlin.
and against.
There was
Scub.
people were talking about. I think the Homestuck one was like you can't experience Homestuck the same way anymore, or if like, or like there's no. It was something
Homestuck
like
is
that.
worse now, I believe. It
Yeah.
was.
There was
Which
a
is-
lot of people talking about Aragorn.
The Aragorn.
not
Yeah,
Aragorn.
I got into the Aragorn argument. It
Yeah.
was that like the movies were good, and I'm like, nah, they weren't. But
There was Scub, which the
Oh, no, it was the
Scub
ending.
was
It
just
was the
put on a
Aragorn
tiny
ending. Sorry.
projector.
Everyone agrees the movies were bad. It was about whether the ending was good.
Yeah.
Of the series.
Scub was put on a tiny TV across the corner of the room, and I looked at it for the first time and burst out laughing. And I think someone next to me, I think it might have been Emerald, was like, "Are you okay?"
Scub.
For people that don't know about Scub, it's pinned somewhere
Oh,
in the UniSFA
Scub's
Discord.
great. You guys would love Scub.
As a proponent of Scub, are we a pro Scub podcast? Can
Oh
we
yeah,
say that?
Pro Scub podcast. No hard for
I
Scub.
I
This is
actually
the
hate
official
Scub now.
stance. Oh my god.
We're
I
going to
gotta
really
have
alienate
discourse.
a small portion of our audience, but those are the guys that don't like Scub, so it's fine.
Yeah, fuck those guys.
All we've got left is
Ask
the
me about Scub.
all we've got left is the anti D&D and pro Scub.
Have you tried
community.
running your RPGs in Scub instead?
Just smear Scub all over the RPG.
What's the rules?
Doesn't matter, but you'll have fun. It'll be a good time.
You'll have
Love
fun.
Scub.
It'll be better than not having Scub, and that's what's
This
important.
guys, I've got a new RPG idea. It's called going out and playing in a sandpit.
That does sound pretty good. I mean, like, what is playing in a sandpit as a kid?
If
not
not
some kind of
role-playing.
like large scale Empires game.
Yeah.
Literally.
Oh man, Empires games are good.
That's a whole other topic.
Whole
That's
other
a whole other topic for another day.
Cam talks about Kreb for 6 weeks. I think I've mentioned the Kreb. Anyway.
Yeah.
We're...
There's Groblins, they're about.
Oh, I love those guys.
Wait, I had more... fuck, did I stop the stopwatch? No, I have some more topics that need to desperately get in.
Quick fire round.
We have
the horse
10
invites
minutes.
you to the bonus round.
Yes, the bonus round. Did we want to do an Overheard and UniSFA segment?
Do we want to do that?
I have an Overheard and UniSFA.
You've got a random one?
No, I have one that happened this week, which was something someone said, which was, I do not need to see Frank Herbert's titties.
Okay, yeah, no, that's an Overheard UniSFA.
Yeah.
So there's
for
a
reference,
book
Overheard.
behind you, which is a Frank Herbert book, and it's just got a picture of a naked, not a picture,
Yeah, all
Drawing of-
fantasy and sci-fi art and covers have a lot of titties on them.
yeah.
A lot of titties.
Especially
Yeah.
your later Dune stuff. Once you get to Chapter
yeah.
House Dune, you're really getting those honoured
That's where I'm
martres.
up to. And I'm like,
Talking-
should I read Chapter
Talking
House?
about June, another thing I found when sorting through the library is apparently our copy of Heretics of June by Frank Herbert is signed
By Frank fucking Herbert.
by Frank fucking Herbert.
Holy shit.
Literally grab it. Can you see it?
We
No,
shouldn't
up
be telling people that. That's
there.
fucked up.
Where?
It's just next to your
your
finger
left.
now, yeah.
There, you're pointing at it. Check.
Dude, that's fucked.
Go in. I think it's either that or someone's just scribbled Frank Herbert on
It does say Frank Herbert on the front. It does seem to be signed by Frank Herbert.
I'm gonna... Well, that looks like a signature, all right, yeah.
it. I really hope it's not Frank Herbert.
That book
Shout
is...
outs
it's
to
not
friend
in
of the
great enough
podcast,
condition.
Frank
Gina
Herbert.
Goddard, who apparently donated this.
Shout out. Also, notice that he scribbled out his. If that is Frank Herbert who signed it, he scribbled out his name.
Yeah, but this does look like it says Frank Herbert in cursive at the front.
Holy shit. Neat. We're a pretty big library. Like, that,
Yeah.
that is not... It is surprising, but it shouldn't be.
Okay.
Some might call us the largest private collection of
Specu-
science fiction, fantasy, speculative fiction, whatever you want to say, in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah. The other thing was Reagan versus Sands.
Reagan or Sands. Okay.
How do you feel about the Reagan versus Sands
I refuse
Twitter
to
poll?
acknowledge the outcome of any Tumblr Sexy Man poll that was conducted on Twitter.
It has like 400,000 votes though.
Yeah, that's about
Also,
Twitter
Tumblr
users.
doesn't
the
have
poll
polls.
is the poll is inherently flawed. It was polling Twitter about Tumblr,
Yeah, but
yes.
you can't poll on Tumblr.
That's for the best.
Can you fucking imagine?
Oh, I can imagine.
But okay, if we're going like in a vacuum, Sands and Reagan,
all the people.
I think Reagan's a fun little man. Sands, I don't know, man. He never did it for me as much as he should have, given my
we've had this.
interest in skeletons.
We've had this.
and
Sands
jokes.
disappointing.
I love skeletons. I love jokes. Sands.
I think Reagan's presidency pushed the United States a little bit too far to the right for
Oh,
my
hard agree.
taste.
No, that's a fair bit. Fuck Ronald Reagan. Reagan Arataka King.
King, Dilf, Twink, whatever
No,
other
stop
things he
that. Stop giving him adjectives that he doesn't have. He's just a guy. He's
Baby
just
girl.
a guy. He's not even that good. He's just sort of a dude.
Who's
What if Saul Goodman was like 20 years younger and like a fake psychic?
I'd want to kiss Saul Goodman if he was 20 years younger.
And a fake psychic?
Yeah, if he was a real psychic, I'd be upset. But if he was a fake psychic, that's okay.
His
That's pretty
apprentice
cool.
is a real psychic, and it's a whole deal.
Mob Psycho 100 is the show we're talking about.
It's a lot of fun. I do
I
recommend. Mob
need to
Psycho
watch
100.
more of it. I
It's-
haven't finished the first season.
It's surprisingly sweet to watch. It's got some real cool shit in it, wizard ways. It's about a little kid who's just far more psychically powerful than like anybody else around him seems to be even like capable of comprehending. And like, but he's still just a kid who like sucks at a lot of things. And it's like, yeah, man, I don't know. Like, some people are good at sports, some people are good at phenomenal cosmic powers, and like, quite frankly, girls are not interested in me.
This sounds like our Ad Ava kids, I'll be honest.
A little bit, man. Yeah, it really is a very nice show, though. I like it.
Yeah. And with that, I think that's the end of the podcast. Final closing thoughts. Everyone gets one final thought. We did facts that aren't true last time. This time, I don't know, something else. Cam.
Fact: if you come to me and you disagree with me about D&D still, and we talk about it for an hour, and you still disagree with me,
It's not going to be an hour. It's going
I
to be
would be
longer.
surprised. I don't know. Just I want to have that. I you know what? No, honestly, even if we discuss it for an hour and you still disagree with me, that's fine. But do let me have that attempt. Let me try.
Let him try. go up to him and be like, "Hello, my name's Bratsworst."
If you've listened to what I've said today and
Frankfurter,
you're
you
like,
need some
you're
more,
just dead
gruel
wrong.
or something.
If you just think I'm wrong about this,
I've spent all
please
my
talk to
money
me.
on D&D source books.
You're out in the cold. You can burn them in a barrel fire for warmth.
I
quote
bought the
Shaquille
Dungeon
O'Neal.
Master's Guide.
Stop it. Get some help.
Jack, final thoughts?
Thought for the day: a small mind is easily filled with faith.
Final thoughts. R.I.P. Lizzie.
Yeah,
True, that happened. Yeah.
the Queen's dead. Jack, you're really gonna go with like what? Yes, it's a 40k bit. I hope you all know Jack's bit was a 40k bit, not just an edgy atheist.